Come on up, Ozzy. Get up here.
Cool.
You just
I
went out.
actually had this really, I don't know why, but I had this like very strong urge to surround myself with yummy, delicious, juicy things in my life. Like, so I actually went to buy, I've been wanting to get like a really nice robe. I want like a really plush robe for winter. And then I want to get a silk rose robe for summer. Couldn't find either. But I went into the gourmet section of like TJ Maxx and I got like all these like gourmet. It's a little expensive, but like I
think it's pronounced gourmet.
Regardless, so I got like all these like fancy sweets and jams, and like I was gonna get flowers too. I don't know why, but I'm like, I just want to like, and then I wash my hair like twice.
Yeah. All right. Well,
like,
hello, Swole Sisters Worldwide.
Oh,
let's acknowledge how beautiful Justine's hair looks right now.
No one gets to see it. Here's the thing, guys, is that I wash my hair at night and then I sleep on it. And anyone with curly hair knows the ringlets do not survive the night. I mean, I don't know. Maybe actually if you have a hack for that, please let me know what it is.
Could you wear like the thing for your hair? Like over your little satin thing over your head?
I don't know. It's so much hair, Jen. Like, I don't know. As soon as you like squish it down, I don't know. I'm open though. If any of the Swole Sisters out there, we really should do a hair corner. We gotta do a hair corner.
I shouldn't be involved in the hair corner.
Yeah, you have straight hair. I have curly hair. We need both perspectives.
The key to straight hair is to wear a hat all the time.
Oh my God. Joyce complimented me on my hat today, and I felt so cool because Joyce is our tennis, it's Jen's tennis coach, but I also anyway, it doesn't matter. She's a really cool tennis lady at the Edge, and she complimented my hat, and I was like, thank you.
Yes, she's definitely always she's always styling. So if Joyce likes your clothes,
like if you imagine the most stylish person wearing athletic, like athleisure wear, that is her. It's like all the dopest athleisure tracksuits, hoodies, vests, like joggers. I am so jealous of her wardrobe. I want to be Joyce.
Yes.
She's the coolest.
Minus the crumbling body parts.
Well, what I noticed too, tennis players who've been playing their whole lives have a very similar gait.
Yeah.
I think it's just the stiffness in the knees. Oh, Jen, I'm scared.
I know I play way too much tennis. I need to stop. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about alcoholism today. I brought up this topic because I just finished, I haven't had a drink since, but yesterday made 60 days without alcohol for me. And normally I do a couple of separated 30-day no alcohol months throughout the year. And then this year I decided to do the 60 days. So I was like, let's talk about alcohol because I think it's something a lot of people are, wrestling with right now with the pandemic. I think alcohol usage is up. It's up in particular with women, like significantly more than men, which is interesting. I kind of think like a lot of jobs that are mostly held by women have been hurt in particular by this. And then there's the whole like doubling up on homeschooling while trying to work and childcare and everything. Maybe there's just like a lot of pressure in particular on women. So that's one reason why they've increased their drinking, and maybe social isolation too, like not being able to see their friends. So I'm not sure.
High stress.
Yeah, high stress. So yeah, and then Justine's been on quite the little path with her no alcohol. So
yeah, I think one thing I would like to touch upon, and it might be too soon in the conversation, but just so I don't forget, is just that, I think that it could be argued, okay, Justine and Jen, you say, banning foods is bad and like totally restricting yourself like doesn't work. So how does that work with alcohol? And I know that we have answers to this, but I do think we need to address it because it does sound, it kind of sounds funny because you know, in the sense that I do support women in the autonomy of their bodies. So I don't not support women who are trying to cut out sugar. It's not that I'm like, those people are terrible, blah, blah, blah. But I would be actively supportive of a woman who said, I would like to, stop drinking. And I would point that person in the direction of support. So, that could seem a little bit hypocritical. So I do, eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like imagine like no cookies the rest of your life versus like no alcohol. I don't know. I just think like realistically, like you can live without alcohol, but you can't live without cookies. I don't
Right.
know.
I think some people would really argue with you on that point, Jen, but I think the way you close your argument is exactly right in the sense that we do not metabolize alcohol in a way that benefits our bodies. It actually is technically a poison, and I don't like to use that word because I think that this idea, I have a real problem with like the clean eating movement because I do believe that it causes disordered eating thoughts, which of course can lead to disordered eating behaviors. I am not a fan of that idea of having clean or dirty foods. But I will say that the difference is that a cookie gives you nutrition, even though you can argue, this idea of like junk food, which now is being like, that's not a word that anybody should be using. But a lot of people do have that verbiage around things like cookies.
I mean, it's energy, and
It's energy.
Your brain can function off the glucose from that cookie. Like,
Yeah, think about what's in a cookie: sugar, fat, and carbs. Those are all things that you can then use to live. And the difference is alcohol does not have any nutritious value that we need to survive. So that's the big difference, kind of similar to like smoking cigarettes. It gives you something that's happening in your brain, but it's not a beneficial thing that's happening in your body. It is detrimental. And again, I know there are people out there who be like, well, sugar's detrimental, blah, 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 the science shows this or whatever. And I'm not going to get into a big discussion around nutrition science. So because we don't have like 4 hours.
Yes. And we talked in advance, and we discussed how this can be a topic that can get people to bristle, and they want to defend themselves and defend their own choices, and like you do what you want. Like it's totally okay. We're not doing this in a like everybody should do what we're doing kind of thing.
No.
But just to like, I don't know, I just think it's something that people are struggling with. So it's nice to like talk about it. Basically.
Yeah, I think that like anything, the more mindfully that we can do any action, I think that it benefits us more. So I think a lot of people with alcohol, it might not be very mindful. It might be a habit or something that they even feel. It's funny because, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have this feeling of like, like, they kind of feel as though maybe it's not the best, but it has become habituated and they don't feel like they have a lot of control over it. And when we lose that mindfulness around anything, I think it's helpful to just examine it and see what role it plays in our lives and make changes according to what you feel like is going to be best for you, really. And I think that that's what it's all about, just having enough that kind of open mind to say, I'm willing to take a look at it, even if it doesn't lead to any kind of behavior changes. Because that's the problem with getting defensive, is we tend to, because that defensive kind of makes it like, I'm not even open to even like having a discussion around it. And some people might feel like that, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people are getting defensive, then there's probably a reason.
Yeah. And it's so funny because how many people do that with, like, it's so, if you were to be like, now are you eating ice cream every night? They're like, yeah, and then you're like, well, what about beer? They're like, well, yeah, I mean, I have a beer, but that's, it's like, it is funny, like, and it's all just socialized, perception of like these, what these things mean in our lives and culturally. So it's kind of interesting the way people do react differently. They'll feel so guilty about having late night like chips, but it's like when you talk about like the half a bottle of Chardonnay, it's like, well, I can't not have that, or whatever the case may be.
I mean, a bag of chips is a lot cheaper than a bottle of wine.
Yes, chips are good. And yeah, I do want to just double up before we get into our personal stories and whatnot, that about what Jen said, that there's no moral high ground here of like people who are not drinking are somehow like superior to people who do drink, or vice versa. That's not what this is about. The same way that like if you work out 5 days a week, you're not superior to somebody who like does a workout every 2 weeks, right? That's not how this is structured.
Dang it, how am I gonna know if I'm better than someone, Justine? I need
That's
to know.
It's a really good question. Like that's like a whole nother really deep topic. Because it is hard. Like as I find myself like stripping away these like identities, that is one of the hard parts is really having an attachment to like, but if I can't judge this lady's grocery cart items, how do I know that I'm like better, or like that I'm doing well?
Which we have discussed is an evolutionary thing that we do.
Of course. That's true. Yeah.
So yeah.
Just being aware of it though, and not treating people differently or expecting to be treated differently. Yeah, exactly.
I was actually like thinking about the pandemic, and I was thinking about people working from home and how a drink can separate your work day from your home, from your evening, especially if you never left the house. Like I can really
such a great point.
How like a drink can be like, okay, work is over and now it's like rest time. So it's hard to like find an alternative to that. And I can see how that can make it really easy to get into like a nightly habit. That, and just as we talked about with food, just like a lack of anything to be excited about.
I think that's such a great point, Jen. And I didn't make that observation. I always felt that way when I was drinking, that like that was a big part of like the getting home, switching gears, clink, right? Like was that drink. But I didn't even think of the fact that that's even more so if you're not even leaving the house. Like how do you switch gears?
Yeah.
That's a really great point. And I guess I would be interested too for people watching, and we could even put out a little post about it of what other possibilities is there to make that gear shift, whether it's and again, this is not, you could do this and continue to drink, but maybe just play around with it and be like, oh, what if I took a shower or a bath, or put on like the little under eye cooling things and had a cup of tea.
I mean, I was telling Justine, I have these little ginger ales that I enjoy with dinner. I'm enjoying that.
I like soda.
Go ahead, judge me for my ginger ale.
Don't at me, bro. Yeah, so I can definitely dive in a little bit about just my own personal experience. I started drinking like pretty young. I don't know if it's young or not, but I was probably only like 13 or 14 when I had like my very first drink. And I like did what I would consider to be like relatively normal college age, like partying and going out and getting drunk and going dancing and all of that. And then once that sort of part of my life was starting to wind down and I wasn't wanting to go out as much, I would still occasionally go out, and having a drink in order to go out was important. Like I really was like, my first observation was really like, if I wasn't drinking, I wouldn't be here. That was my first observation. Now, again, so much has changed since the pandemic. And so I don't know, I hope this is still relevant, but that was my first observation, was like the only way I can be in this scenario and have a good time is if I'm drinking. And so that kind of was like the first very small like red flag for me personally, where I was like, that's kind of weird. And then and then also like through like maturation, peripherally, my like alcoholism runs in my family. My grandmother was a severe alcoholic. She passed away ultimately from her alcoholism at a young age. Like she was like in her early 50s, I think. I didn't get to meet her. And then my mother is a recovered alcoholic, but she was an alcoholic till I was about 10 or 11 years old. And then my brother is a active member of the AA community. He's thankfully in recovery as well after many years of drug and alcohol abuse. So looking at my family, you don't really think about it. Like you feel very like independent and so like individual in your 20s. I don't know how to describe it, but you're kind of like, I'm my own person and like all of that. And I remember my mother telling me when I finally kind of talked to her about her experience, you know, I was like, how did you know, or like when you had a problem, you know? And she just said, well, I'm not going to share the pinnacle point, but I'm going to just share a part of what she said, which was, you know, it's such a slow process and you don't like, it's like when you like boil a frog, you just like slowly, I don't know what that metaphor is about or from. I'm sure it has context, but you slowly turn the heat up, right? And for her, it really wasn't any different. It just became this habit. And then it just grew and grew and grew until it was a problem for her. So I thought that was interesting because I think that we all kind of naively think with a lot of things in our life, like there's just going to be this moment, you know. And I'm not to say some people who, especially alcoholics, will maybe have like that rock bottom moment or whatever.
I guess like hope that you don't have that moment because it's probably something really terrible happens.
The worst time. So you know, as I was kind of just seeing myself, and I think that's a maturing thing where you see yourself more like, I don't know, like my mannerisms are very much like my mom. Derek, I am in the middle of a story.
How do you know it's Derek?
Jennifer, you little hussy.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I started to see myself like my mannerisms and how I like literally am turning into my mom, you know, and I think that has something to do with me taking an examination or whatever of my own behavior. And one thing that I started to notice was that drinking had slowly become not enjoyable for me. So it used to be every time I drank, I had a good time. And then it was like 90% of the time I drank, I had a good time. And then it was 80. Then it was 70, then it was 60. And as I moved through my 20s, like the amount of times I was actually having a fun time or the amount of times I was enjoying it kept shrinking and this is the same thing that happened to me with smoking. Oh my God, when I first started smoking, I loved smoking. Every cigarette, I was like, this is awesome. I love this, right? But then it slowly declined till every cigarette, I was like, this is terrible. What am I doing? And I quit smoking because of that. I wish I could say it was for my health, but I mean, it partially was, but it was really because I just didn't enjoy it anymore. So the drinking had a similar, you know, I had a similar experience where I was having a drink, same thing, very similar to what Jen experienced. Like as soon as I got home, I actually really enjoyed the taste of alcohol. And as soon as I got home, I would make myself a drink and have it. And I just realized like it didn't feel good to me anymore. Honestly, like it's just as simple as that. And then it was even when I would go out with my girlfriends to have a cocktail, I just didn't feel good, not physically, but like my internal landscape was not enhanced, nor was my experience with my friends. Like nothing was being enhanced. I felt as though it was actually making me have a worse time. I felt very disconnected. It wasn't like causing that connection anymore that a lot of people feel with alcohol, where they're like, oh my God, we had such a fun night and like we bonded and that's so cool. And I mourn those times because, oh my God, such great times, you know, when you're like buzzed or like whatever, and you're like talking to somebody you don't even know them and you're like, this is awesome, we're like best friends, and that's like really magical stuff. And I just was like, this just isn't working for me anymore. And that was when it was like September 2 years ago that I decided to stop drinking. Yeah, and that's and for me, it was very scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's like kind of embarrassing actually how scared I was to not drink. Jen knows because you know, confided in her that I was just, I don't know. It just seemed really daunting and frightening to me, and the idea of like you're never gonna, you know, I don't know, it just seems scary, and I didn't want to let myself down because I tend to not be great at committing to things, and I was like, I was really scared I was gonna not be able to do it and feel disappointed or like a failure. But it's worked wonderfully in my life. And I can honestly say I don't miss it. I look back very fondly on many of the, you know, experience I had while drinking. But I don't miss it in my life anymore. And my life has greatly improved since I stopped drinking, to be honest. Yeah. And I wasn't drinking a lot. I would drink, I mean, I don't know what that means, but I would have a big like glass of Prosecco, maybe 1.5, most weeknights. And then on the
What do
weekends,
you think has changed for you in your life?
that's a really good question. I mean, I think like there was definitely a feeling of self-efficacy. It was really, to me, one of the most, it was one of the biggest actions that I took for my self-care. It was just this enormous step for me personally, this enormous step that I was like really caring for myself and saying, like, this part of me just like stepped in and said, like, I'm going to take over and like we're going to do this. And I did it, and it also wasn't as daunting as I had thought it was. So I think that there was just a lot of like proof of self-efficacy for me,
Mhm.
and that gave me confidence. And it also really helped me step into who like a truer version of myself, because I kept doing things. You know, this was pre-pandemic. I still went and did things, but it just really, I realized how much the alcohol would, like, I would stay out later than I really wanted, or maybe I would say something that like I didn't really intend to say. It didn't feel authentic. I just felt like that buzzed person, even after one glass of wine, just really wasn't me. So that was a big part of it, was just like stepping into the world as myself. And that felt really, really good to me. And I think that it changed my business and like my friendships. And I still hang out with people all the time. Not Jen. Jen and I never really were like drinking friends, but I do have friends that drink. And I mean, I hope they don't feel like it's like not as fun. I still have a great time and laugh. And I had so many fears about I'm never going to dance and I'm never going to laugh and I'm going to be anxious and feel weird. I mean, I do feel weird and anxious sometimes still, but I dance and I laugh and have like these amazing laughs, and it feels very authentic to me, and that's important for me. That's a value of mine, like authenticity and trying to just step into myself and be myself is very, very important. It's like basically my life goal is just to like fully embody
Yeah, and I
me.
think that's like a big part of like growing up and aging too, and just
Mhm.
yes. Leah messaged saying that she stopped because it stopped being fun and ended up causing anxiety for her.
Yeah, I also had anxiety, and I think that, you know, alcohol in and of itself is technically like a depressant. Jen and I have talked about that before, and I think when you're in your 20s, for whatever reason, like, I mean, most of us had that situation where you're like, you can like drink and you just feel so jazzed, and you wake up in the morning and go, you know, you're in college, you go to class, and you're like fine. Like, I mean, there is just also, I think, metabolic changes and hormonal changes as we get older. In my 30s, where like that depressive part of alcohol was like, that became pretty pronounced, where I just, yeah, it wasn't a fun time. It wasn't a fun time anymore. I didn't feel great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's what got me wanting to take like a longer break, was just like the fact that we're going through a pandemic and like it's hard and it's winter in Vermont. And I was like feeling depressed already. I was like, this just isn't helping my depression. Like,
Right.
it's just not helping it. I might get like a brief, like 45 minutes of relief, but then it's going to get followed by like waking up in the middle of the night feeling like crap, waking up in the morning feeling like crap, and then being tired and then beating myself up for drinking too much. And one of the things I always notice is something like I journal every morning. And if something continues to pop up in my journal every morning, like it's something that needs to be addressed. And the drinking is something that would pop up all the time. And same thing, probably never more than like 3 drinks in a night, but like it was, it's enough for me to feel groggy the next day and just icky. And like like yesterday I played 3 hours of tennis. I don't know if I would have really wanted to or been able to do that if I'd had half a bottle of wine the night before. So that was a big thing. And I think honestly, like being in a relationship I wasn't super pumped on, like I would drink when we hung out.
Yeah.
And then
I
stopped.
mean, Jen and I talked about this, and I said to her, because Jen's back on the market. Sorry, Jen, was I not supposed to say that? But
my relationship status has changed.
Well, I just mean to say, I said to Jen, I said, listen, I want to be totally effing honest here that like, I was drinking when Sunny and I got together. Like I've never entered into, like, I have no idea what it would be like to like begin dating somebody sober. I've never done that. And I imagine that it's challenging, but also rewarding in a lot of ways. Not that you are going to even do that, but I'm just saying it. Yeah. I did start thinking about the fact I'm like, like that is not something I've experienced. But again, but it's challenging, but really kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, we will see.
Can I just be really honest too, that we don't talk a lot about this here, but I was also really worried that like sex was going to be like, I wasn't going to be as, I don't know, like
uninhibited.
Yeah. But the cool thing is when we talk about like positive changes is actually like my intimacy with Sunny has actually increased as far as my, just like the comfort in my own body and like really being present because that's one thing when you're like buzzed, and having sex, it's like it can be so fun and like I'm not being a downer about it, but you're not, I don't know, like I never felt like I was really like in my body. And as somebody that has spent most of my life like body, having body image issues and all of that, that was a big relief to me that I really felt like, oh, this actually has enhanced right. Yeah, my experience because
I felt the same way. I mean, I could see how it'd be different when you're entering like in a new like having sex with a new partner, that there's always like that like breaking the ice thing with the alcohol, but that doesn't have to be that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And I'll be honest too, that when I first stopped drinking, that was I did give myself at that time, like full permission to eat whatever I wanted, even though I wasn't technically practicing intuitive eating in more of a structured way as I am now. I was at that point in my recovery from disordered eating that I did not restrict myself. And I was very aware and open to the fact that without having that wine every night, that I was most likely going to be replacing it with something else. And I went into that eyes wide open. I was like, have what you want, so I think
to counter that, not that we're counting calories or anything, but like not feeling like crap the next day and tired, you don't end up like searching for those like carby fatty foods as much to like make up for the fact that you feel like crap. So I think it all evens itself out.
Absolutely.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yes, definitely. But like anything, when you take something away, it creates like like it's like a space is suddenly there that wasn't, and your body it's like you have this ship and boop, like this, and then you take a giant piece of it out down over here and it's going to go, until you get back to equilibrium. So I think it's just important to realize with any change, like one of the biggest mistakes I think people make with changes is that they just try to like remove things, remove habits. And it's like, okay,
and
well, what
then
are you
like
going to do
white
instead?
knuckle their way through like the other things too. Like
Certainly. And that was a big thing for me. Like this week, I'm going back to no phone in the freaking bedroom, but I reward myself with having very saucy books to read.
Oh, nice. You'll have to give me some of those. I like saucy books to read.
Some bodice rippers, Jen.
Oh, nice. I like it.
No, sorry.
We did. And I remember I didn't feel this way this time, but I have in the past. And I remember this happening with you is you were like, I'm feeling all these things, like I'm going through all this stuff. I was like, well, you're not drinking anymore, so like you're having to actually like deal with your problems.
Oh my God. Jen is like literally my everything. It was probably how long after I stopped drinking, I was like, I don't know why this is happening. I'm having all this stuff come up and like I feel like I'm losing my mind, and Jen just like so, because she could just easily just be like, are you an idiot? But she's like, well, Justine, maybe that's because you haven't been drinking. And so things are kind of coming up that weren't. And I was just like, God damn it, Jen, you genius. Because I really was feeling a little kooky. And when you said that, I was like, oh, yes, that makes sense. I will not commit myself now. Thank you.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of that when you don't have that coping mechanism, and like that alone is like a reason to not always turn to alcohol for managing stress. And I really wanted to talk about like perimenopause and menopause and drinking, because I just see it a lot. I think that it's like, we got a couple other comments here. Kate Madden, hi Justine, been listening for like 10 minutes now. You guys both make really good points. Keep talking.
Oh, no pressure or anything.
Oh crap. So like, and that was something I started to notice some mood swings. Like I'm 42, like my hormones, I'm just not like I'm gonna start like having hot flashes today or anything, but like hormones are starting to like, what is there's that woman that I follow on Instagram, she's like calls it like,
I'm obsessed with her.
She calls it like the sputtering of your ovaries. I'm like, oh, that's so sad.
So poetic.
But I noticed like some really bad PMS and like just feeling out of control. And I was like, I don't think the drinking is helping this, because so a lot of people are like, well, alcohol helps me fall asleep. It does help you fall asleep, but it is not going to help you stay asleep, and it's going to hurt your REM sleep. So I'm reading my book about why we sleep, and different things happen different parts of your sleep cycle, and we need all of them. So missing out on that REM sleep can really affect things. But like when you're going through these hormonal changes, it's hard to manage stress. And it's also a time in your life when there tends to be more stress, because you're like straddling taking care of kids and parents and like all kinds of other crap. And so it's very understandable that you would like turn to alcohol. But like I really think that a lot of times it's making the problem worse.
Certainly. And one thing,
and hot flashes, that's the other thing. It makes hot flashes worse.
Oh, I mean, I feel like honestly, a lot of alcohol, like if I had any kind of brown alcohol, like liquor or like a red wine, I would like immediately, I don't know if I had like an allergy or something.
Well, it raises your body temperature. So that is why.
That's not what I need. I am so fiery already. Like
you are.
My freaking aura or whatever. Anyway, what came to mind when you were talking was this kind of metaphorical toolbox that we have. And like we've said with food, right? It's like, there's nothing wrong with eating, right? Something yummy or comforting when you're feeling emotional or stressed. That's not wrong or bad. What I would ask to be curious about is that your only outlet? Is that your only, like when you reach into your toolbox, when you're having anxiety or depression or whatever, and there's only one, like all you have is like this one Phillips head screwdriver, right? That's not going to cut it. Like you, and so my encouragement is not that it's wrong or bad, but can you start to fill that toolbox with other methods for dealing with what you're going through? So yeah, same thing as, people are like, well, isn't it not good to just like eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's if when I'm sad? It's not about good or bad, but like if you would like to have other options, I think that that's always positive thing, right?
But that is
So
another way. Well, alcohol and food is different. Besides, if you can separate yourself from guilt and shame about what you're eating, the chances of your food actually causing more anxiety and depression are unlikely. Whereas with alcohol, the solution is the problem. Like, this is like a cycle.
yeah, that's a great point, Jen. Yeah. And I think I just want to be gentle. I mean, a part of me is just like, but like I just want to be
Yeah.
gentle with people because like drinking is a huge part of our culture, and I certainly don't want anyone to feel alienated.
Oh, I
like,
don't even know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know what's next. Like, I don't know. Am I gonna go back to drinking on the weekends? I don't really know yet.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool about like Jen and I don't want to brag, but we kind of make the most awesome duo because Jen and I are quite different in our like minds. Like I just love about Jen that Jen can be very open-ended. Like for her, she's like, okay, I'm doing this now, but like maybe in a while I will drink. So I think that that's such a great way of thinking about it for people. Don't be like me. Be like Jen. Be like, hey, like
Yes.
maybe I'll just experiment with this. And again, it doesn't have to be like, I think that one little bit of a red flag is if you're just counting down the days till you get to have a drink again. I'm not sure that I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But like if you're
and it's been like that. The 30-day ones that I've done have always been like that. And I did count the days, but it was more like I was counting them up to like be proud of myself.
Yeah.
Than like counting down to when I could drink again. I wanted that like 60 to be like, you did 60 days, Jen.
Yeah. And I think like I said, to be like Jen is to be curious and to say, I don't think like this, that alcohol is helping me in this time of my life. Why don't I take an experiment and take it out and see what happens? Right. And it's not about saying, and now I'm never drinking again, because that might cause a lot of anxiety for people that might be curious around trying it. If you start thinking, okay, now I'm going to stop drinking forever, that's a lot. That's not, no, most people are not going to respond great to that. It's totally different. Can I just say, maybe we should have said this earlier, like we're not talking about alcoholism here. Like that's a totally separate thing. Like, and we are not qualified to talk about that. So I just want to make that clear. But if you are going through a time and you're like, yeah, I'm having wine at night and then I kind of get like in a dark place or I start like kind of feeling anxious. It's like, don't say to yourself, well, I clearly need to cut out wine and not drink. Just give it a try and see what happens. And if you have support, like you go to therapy, talk to your therapist about it. Be like, yeah, I'm thinking about trying this thing, like, and I need support, or talk to a friend about it, or a partner. And I mean, I feel so lucky because I do have people to talk to and support me. I think it's really difficult. Sunny drinks.
Yeah, but not a lot. I mean, if you had a partner, it's definitely hard.
There are a lot of challenges that could arise. So again, it's just about being curious and having that self-compassion and just seeing what are the possibilities. That's like the beauty in life, is that things are changing all the time and you can, make changes. It's cool to have options. But it really depends on your situation.
I also think like it was easier this time around because there were no social engagements. So
of course.
And then as far as like hanging out with Ryan went, like I would normally have a drink, and that at first when I would have normally started to go for a drink, I would feel awkward, but like within 15 minutes, I just forgot about that part of it and just like went on with my evening.
That's such a good point, Jen, because when I first stopped drinking, I would really put so much like thought about the moment. Like, so if I would go out, like we're going to dinner, like that moment when I would order I'd be the only one at the table ordering the non-alcoholic beverage. Like I would be like, just so hyper focused on that moment. But the fact is like, once it's over, like it's really
then
actually
everything
not that
just
big
like,
a deal.
yeah, so it is interesting how it's like that. But for me, I was also like, okay, so I'm not going out, so that means I'm drinking by myself most of the time.
Yeah.
Will you let him out for me?
I don't have feet on.
Oh.
I don't have feet on?
You,
Is that how he says he doesn't have shoes?
yes, he has.
That's hilarious.
He
I don't have
probably
my
wants
feet
to chop
on.
off a foot right now. So yeah, I was like, okay, so my options are like, my option is like drinking alone, which once again, I don't, it's not helpful for me.
Yeah. And I would say, to think about it as like an empowerment thing. It's like if you're like, I have people that I know like that were just like, I love drinking. Like it is a part of my life. I have no interest in changing it. Like awesome. Like I'm so happy that people have that kind of decisiveness in their like who they are and what they want and everything. But if you are having doubts or questions or like nagging, like I don't know, it is for me, it was just like this, like I said, it was just stepping into myself. It felt like very authentic, like, and now I am doing this, and like this makes so much sense for me. And I think that there are people out there like me that might still be drinking and they're just like it feels overwhelming. And I totally, oh man, I totally get it, because I mulled it over for a long, long time. It wasn't like one day I just made, and was like, here we go. Like, I mean, it had been a long time that I've been thinking about it and mulling it over and everything. But to step into like, what do you want?
Yeah. What do
Who
you
do you want to
value?
be?
What do you value? I mean, I think for me,
Yeah.
like a huge value is like my health, and this was affecting my physical and my emotional health.
Yeah.
So it needed to change, and whether that means it's like completely gone or just like greatly reduced, because those things, like I value those things quite a bit. So
Absolutely. That's a great, I think, first step for people is, does drinking alcohol in the way that you are doing it add or detract from like your authentic self and your values? Yeah, it's a really good point.
yeah, because like I work at a brewery, and like beer is like a huge part of people's lives there, so like I understand like to a lot of
Absolutely. And
people
that's
there.
such a great point, Jen, is like, I don't want to downplay the role of alcohol in our culture. I mean, this is like, there are people who their livelihood is like growing hops and selling it to breweries, or like having a brewery. And that's like a small business and all of that. So there is just such a culture. It's almost like music or something, where it's like people have genres that they get really into with like beers and wines, and it's almost like an art. And so I don't want to downplay that, because I do truly have a great appreciation for that, and also the history of alcohol, alcohol in the world. I mean, it's like it's a global thing. I mean, it's very linked to our humanity as well.
All right, Kate asked, did you both stop drinking for the long run or the foreseeable future to happen at the same time? So yeah, Kate joined a little later. Justine's been, is it 2 years pretty much?
Yeah. So I'll be honest that the first year, from September 2019 to September 2020, I had champagne on New Year's Eve, which I regretted because I hadn't drank it. I don't know. I was just like, why did I do this? I did not feel well. I went to a yoga class the day after. It was terrible. And then I drank when we went to Mexico. So right before the pandemic hit, it was like the day we got back, basically, that it was like coronavirus is in the United States. But we managed to go to Mexico, and we went with a couple. We were like basically with couples that one of them I did know okay pretty well, and then the other people I did not know at all, and they didn't speak any English, and I did not speak their language, and I did drink during that trip. And then once I got back, I was very happy to come back and to be sober again. I just was like, wow, like, yeah. Anyway, and at the time I was a little bit like, felt kind of guilty or I don't know, bad or something. But at the same time, I'm happy that it happened like that because it was such good examples of like, okay, I'm making the right choice. Like drinking in
Right.
Mexico did nothing good for me. Drinking on New Year's Eve did in no way added to my experience of bringing in the new year. And so after that Mexico trip, which was actually 1 year ago, like this week, because it's been a year
Mhm.
since lockdown, basically.
Seems like 10 years ago that you were on
I
that
know
trip.
it's weird. So yeah, so it's been a full year. And then
Well,
halfway,
she wanted to know if we discussed it with each other or with anyone else before we decided to do it. So I kind of like I just told you, I feel like I just told you like offhandedly. I was like, I'm gonna do 60 days. And
well,
I
I
think
thought too you were doing challenges at the time. Is that not right? Were you doing a year of kind of
I
like
did a year of challenges, but this 60 days, this recent 60
oh,
days,
yeah.
yeah, I didn't make a big fuss about that. I mean, I told the guy I was dating, I told my roommate, but like,
But that's also because you've done this before. Like you've
yeah,
taken breaks before. This isn't your first time
right,
doing
yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
then if you missed it, Kate, I'm not quite sure if my plan is to quit alcohol completely or have it minimally. I don't really know.
Yeah. And I don't plan on drinking ever again. And again, it's just because I love my life the way that it is, and in my opinion, for me personally, it adds nothing. It only detracts from the enjoyment and contentment and peace in my life. And so for me, I will not drink again. I can't foresee that I would drink again. And yeah, I mean, Sonny was really, he was really supportive. He's a little bit, bless his heart, he's a little ignorant when it comes to like substance abuse and things like that. Like I remember after my brother got sober, he wasn't really an alcoholic. He was had a drug addiction, and Sonny like didn't, he was just like, oh, is Alex gonna like drink beer? when, when he got sober, like he really just didn't know. A lot of people just are really not like privy to like recovery and all of that. So he I don't want to say he made a few missteps, but I think when I first got sober, we like went to Montreal for my birthday. He's like, "Oh, are you gonna have wine?" And I was like, "No, I don't drink." And he was like, "Oh, I just thought maybe you would have something." So, and again, it wasn't because he was like,
That's like how we would act if you were vegetarian too. We'd be like, but you're gonna have this bacon, right? Or whatever,
right,
not
like
bacon, but
chicken,
like
veal, duck. Anyway, yeah. So I think, so yeah, I mean, thankfully, that was never like, it wasn't something like, even though he drank and I drank, it wasn't something that really bonded us, fortunately. So when I stopped drinking, if anything, his drinking did, he definitely cut back on his drinking just cuz.
I
And
will I will say, so I did that This Naked Mind
mm,
has like a 30-day no alcohol challenge,
you
and
should
it's
put
a
that in the comments, maybe, Jen.
yes, and I'll do it in a second.
That's
Well,
okay.
actually, maybe I'll do it after because then I can do the link to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, which I don't feel like doing on my phone.
That's okay.
But it has like daily little lessons and stuff like that, and it had a Facebook group, which was rugged. The Facebook group was rugged, but there were a lot of people in couples that really struggled when one partner wanted to continue to drink like significantly while the other wanted to quit drinking. Like it seemed like
Yeah.
that can be a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're in a partnership, again, like, I did like the boat metaphor, right? But like you're in a boat with another person. So like if you change your behavior, the boat is going to rock, and then that person is then affected. And even though it might seem like a positive change, any change creates friction. Any change is going to create some stress, anxiety, and tension or whatever.
Isn't that a song like "Don't Rock the Boat, Baby"?
Rock the boat. Rock the boat. Yes, very
Sorry.
helpful digression. Yeah, so and that's why I said, I mean, I think it's so personal. So even though I can tell my story and say like blah blah blah, like this is what I did, it's like anything. It's like my experience is going to be different. We're all going to have parallel, threads that are like similar that weave through our experience, but ultimately the tapestry will be very unique because everyone is in a very different situation. So I think that that's important. And I think, yeah, I mean, just the family you come from is different. Like I have friends who have been interested in drinking, but they're like, I am not going to be supported by my family. Like if, and again, the pandemic changed this too, but like for this person, it was like the idea of going home for the holidays and not drinking would be like insane. Like it was like impossible to even comprehend that. Right. So like, there's so many things to go into. And that's why I really would recommend, if people aren't in, and again, we're not talking about alcoholism here where you would maybe go to AA, although if you're curious about that, I've been actually to AA meetings and they're great. But to talk to a therapist, if you're not already meeting with one, specifically to help you navigate that, if that's something that is important to you or that you're curious about. Yeah. It's not easy to do this stuff alone, guys. Oh my gosh, it really isn't. Is that it? And don't leave it on that depressing note.
What else do I have to say? Crack is whack.
Crack is whack. Thank you, Jen. Good sign off. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd like to keep, and this discussion is a good one. And I think it's hard because I think that there is like transgenerational stuff that goes on, like as somebody like who grew up with an alcoholic parent, that really throws some like pretty wacky weird trauma and like weird stuff going on, right? So I think it is a touchy subject, and I think it makes people feel kind of vulnerable. And in some cases, like, it's like, isn't it like over 2 drinks a night is like technically like, what is it, like binge drinking for women, right? It's like if we all were to have followed those, I was basically like a binge drinker for like my entire 20s, right? So it's difficult. It's a difficult topic, but we will keep the lines of discussion open. Jen will share that because that was a really cool. I actually shared that with one of my clients as well, that one that you recommended, and
I liked it. And it's an option. Do you need to keep commenting in order to get us to keep talking, Kate? I don't know.
Kate's like, no, don't leave.
If somebody doesn't want to go the AA route, like it's another option.
No, don't. Oh,
you've got your double volume on.
Oh my God. Oh God. That was like, that really just, I felt like I entered into a time warp.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, guys, it has been almost a freaking hour. How did this?
Yeah, we did. That was a long one. That's what she said.
Lord. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope people who watch this later do a few comments about your thoughts on this subject, because obviously we're always interested in your experiences, and there's no wrong answers here. And who knows what we're going to talk about next week? I don't.
Yeah. Feel free to bring something up.
Tell us what to talk about, please. No, I'm kidding.
Justine doesn't need to be told what to talk about. She's got things.
I have a lot of, I don't know if you're going to want to hear them, but I have things to say. All right, everyone. Have a great night, and we will see you 1 week from today.
Goodbye.